And some major developments in Russia's war on Ukraine. The New York Times is reporting today U.S. intelligence confirmed that senior Russian military officials have been discussing the use of nuclear weapons in the conflict.
The intelligence has alarmed the Biden administration. Last week, Newsmax reported that the Pentagon is speeding up the deployment of U.S. tactical nuclear warheads to NATO bases in Europe as a precaution. Times said the U.S. has not seen any evidence that Russia is actually deploying nuclear weapons. But there is growing evidence Iran is upping its support of Russia. Iran is reportedly planning to send more than 1,000 weapons, including short-range ballistic missiles, to Russia. Russia is said to be running short on smart weapons after a series of devastating strikes this past week on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure.
And Russia has backed down after a global condemnation of its decision last week to quit a UN agreement allowing grain shipments from the Ukraine. Now, last Saturday, Moscow claimed Ukrainian drones had attacked its Black Sea fleet. Now, the Russian Defense Ministry says it has received guarantees that allow it to rejoin that program.
All right. In other words, they are going to supply the grain. They didn't want to get NATO mad at them. That's what's going on.
Pretty much.
And in a smart move, the Biden administration has sent military inspectors into Ukraine. The Pentagon says the inspectors will ensure that billions of dollars of military equipment is actually going to the front lines. A lot of people questioning where that money was going, whether somebody was skimming off the top, and
right.
And so this is a way to people feel comfortable that the money is being spent properly and the weapons are getting where they're supposed to go.
Exactly. And of course, the Pentagon also made clear, as Bob just said, these are not military advisors and are not directly engaged with the actual Ukrainian armed forces.
Okay, we're also following this breaking news out of East Asia. Air raid sirens sounded on a South Korean island this after North Korea fired more than 20 missiles, at least one of them landing near South Korea's sea border. South Korea retaliated by launching its own missile in the same border area.
And the launches came hours after North Korea threatened to use nuclear weapons in protests of ongoing South Korea and U.S. military drills. Joining
us now to discuss, former Undersecretary of Defense Robert Wilkie. Mr. Wilkie, your assessment of what Russia is doing right now and where we stand as far as nuclear usage.
Sure. I don't expect nuclear usage for the foreseeable future. If you look back to 2009 when the Obama-Biden administration came in, this is pretty regular rhetoric for the Russians. You didn't hear it during Trump-Pence, but under Obama-Biden and Biden-Harris, you hear it quite a bit. It's designed to intimidate not just Washington, but in particular the Europeans. We've seen no evidence that the Russians have uncovered any of their nuclear weapons. And this is a two-stage process for them. Putin doesn't carry the codes in a briefcase. This is a decision that has to go through several layers of bureaucracy in the Russian general staff. So it's not something that is a snap decision that he can make on his own. There has to be calculations on the part of those underneath him in the Russian military. But so far, it's the rhetoric we've seen since the day Obama-Biden came in.
Yeah, Secretary, something we have been talking about, of course, questions about Putin's health. We spoke about that he allegedly has cancer yesterday. More reports coming out today that he's secretly battling Parkinson's disease and pancreatic cancer. Your thoughts on this, and is there anything that you know of?
Well, I've read the same thing, and we're seeing that in the British, German, and French and Israeli press. The one thing that Putin, I think, has to worry about now is not the attitude in Moscow and St. Petersburg. It's in all of those countries that they control called the stands, Dagestan, Uzbekistan, those places where the populations are being sacrificed in Ukraine to keep the privileged in Moscow and St. Petersburg out of the fight. The British in the 19th century called Russia a prison of peoples, and that's exactly what it is. In fact, it's worse under Putin than it has been since the fall of the Soviet Union. So those are the places that are starting to rumble, and those reverberations are going to be felt through the Kremlin before we know any more about Putin's own physical health.
Yeah, let's talk about that a second. Is this accurate information? Would we know this through our intelligence capabilities? And or is this an effort for Russia to create an exit strategy for Putin from the world stage in a war that he clearly is not winning?
Well, I think we do know from sources within the Kremlin that something is not right with him. I don't think that they would be setting up at this stage his removal this way. If he's going to be removed, I think it's going to look something like what happened to Khrushchev, where the military and the politicians around him finally say, enough is enough. I mean, he's still moving forward with his assaults on Ukrainian infrastructure. He's cozied up again to the Ayatollahs, and he's looking for more cooperation from the Chinese. So right now, I don't see that as the beginning of an endgame just yet.
Okay. Secretary Robert Wilkie, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And as we mentioned earlier, Russia has agreed to rejoin a committee to guarantee safe passage to shipments of grain from Ukraine. Now, this comes just days after Russia pulled out of the deal due to drone attacks on a city in Crimea. Our foreign correspondent Chuck Holton has the latest live from southern Ukraine. Chuck.
That's right. I just came from that area down in the Black Sea coast today, and there are grain ships lined up out of the port waiting to leave and to go deliver their cargo all around the world. I think part of the reason why Russia is talking about rejoining this effort is not just because of the opprobrium that they got from around the world, but because things are just going so badly for them on the battlefield. I was with a group of the president's advisors who went down to take a look at the fighting near Kherson. We entered Kherson region, the oblast there, and went and talked to some of the on-the-front line commanders as they were literally taking out Russian tanks. You see right there that we watched that live as they were taking out Russian tanks using drones to adjust their fires. And they're doing it very effectively. They're doing it carefully and methodically, and they're doing it without a lot of loss of life on the side of the Ukrainians. But on the Russian side, a tremendous loss of life, especially around Liman and places where the Russians are trying to actually make some gains. They're talking about 700 dead Russians just yesterday and over 5,000 dead Russians in the last week. Russia cannot sustain losses like that. And based on the amount of territory that Ukraine is retaking over the last month, if you were to just extrapolate that out, it would really mean that there would be no Russians left in Ukraine after about 6 months from now. So things are going very badly on the battlefield for Russia, and they can't continue to hide that forever. So that's maybe why they're starting to make noises about, well, we need to have peace, that sort of thing.
Holton, thank you so much for the report.